The story begins with a mysterious night looming over a dense forest that carries secrets. A young girl secretly spied on a man chopping down trees. He had a graceful, beautiful back and strong, muscular arms. She was embarrassed by her feelings, but could not help herself. And she wanted to meet the handsome lumberjack. She liked watching him. The guy calmly continued to cut down trees, not implying that they were spying on him. The girl did not know how to start a conversation with the handsome young man, and therefore doubted her intentions. However, she still decided to take the first step, which she soon regretted. She came out from behind the trees and called out to the young man, holding a handkerchief in her hand. After which, approaching him, she offered to wipe the sweat from his face, because he was tired. But the guy's reaction was somewhat unpredictable. He sharply refused her, claiming that he had venous occlusion, caused by varicose veins and headaches, so she better not fall in love with him. Having suppressed her desire to get to know him as much as possible, the girl asked for forgiveness. Then she hurried to run away from the extremely strange young man. He, in turn, realized that it was necessary to find another place for solitude. Meanwhile, the system notified him of an increase in energy, as a result of the felled trees, which had managed to be preserved. And also the charisma was increased, as a result of the driven-out peasant woman. Such a reaction to her was caused by the system. This happened much earlier. The employees were seeing off their colleague Lin Yi on his last journey. He was the best employee. The director put a laptop in his coffin, saying that even in heaven he would do what he loved. After which, the main character was reborn into an immortal cultivator, who began his journey as a great warrior, beginning to actively eliminate all obstacles. Lin wanted to become the greatest cultivator in the world and be at the top, but the problem was that he could not belong to this world, and was subsequently cursed. And until his soul is completely destroyed, he is affected by the curse of reverse karma. Lin Yi became like the target of a world that was bound by this reverse karma, and he immediately began to improve himself, gradually increasing his skills. He began to diligently cut down trees at night, while everyone was sleeping soundly, and rested during the day, while the rest, on the contrary, worked hard and were looking forward to rest. But still, garbage is garbage, and after a while the main character was discovered. Unknown people began to throw stones at him. Lin did not want to tolerate such treatment. They said that he could not atone for his sins by simply chopping down trees with an axe. Accusing him of cunning, he allegedly pretended to be gifted in order to gain the attention of the head of the family. One of them noted that such a waste of resources threatens them with reprisals from the Golden Blade clan. A couple of days ago, the clan leader announced that he had the only first-class pill. It helps lay the foundation of cultivation, which he decided to give to Lin, because a genius like him simply needs it. He tried to refuse the capsule, but the head stood his ground. After taking this pill, he literally had rays of light emanating from his eyes. People began to say that a new cultivator would soon appear in their Lin family. Lin shouted loudly, as if he was experiencing an overwhelming feeling of rage. But after taking the pill, all of Ye's characteristics dropped to 0, and he had to raise his cultivation level again. The main character was very unhappy with this, blaming the annoying old man for it. However, at the same time, he became the owner of a completely different ability. Every time he was insulted or humiliated, his stats increased rapidly, which in turn could not help but please him. This was the advantage of the capsule. The strangers in the forest continued to provoke Lin, saying that his cultivation level had decreased and he had become dull. But self-confident Yi did not pay attention to them. They did not like that he ignored them. After which, he suddenly turned around and, pretending that he had not heard, asked what they wanted. Yi was absolutely calm, once again demonstrating his steadfastness. Noting that they themselves wanted him to take this pill, and if they really needed it, then they would have to wait until it came out. What angered the irrepressible adventurers was that they threateningly declared that they would kill him in the name of their clan. One of them attacked Lin with lightning speed, using a unique technique that bloomed hundreds of flowers. But having managed to increase his E characteristics, he became immune to any damage of the Lian Qi rank. The system hastened to notify him about this, having carried out a full diagnosis. Full of confidence and strength, Lin headed towards the troublemakers, urging them to try to hit him again, only this time they have to try harder. Yi simply mocked the gang of scoundrels, saying that they should be more severe. Despite the fact that he is as beautiful as a delicate flower, they could not understand why he behaved this way. It was as if a certain aura surrounded him, and he was not at all afraid of them, but even the opposite. The main one from the bottom said that they would now make a chop out of him, and he should not expect mercy, after which they immediately rushed to attack him, but after a certain time had passed, they realized that they really couldn't handle Yi since he had the rank of Lian Qi, and the more they fought with him, the stronger he became. It seemed useless. Lin jokingly said that he was waiting for them a little later, when they gained strength. Yi began to run around the clearing and cheerfully shout something, which completely scared away the pests running away from him. Then, in the same playful manner, Lin urged them not to forget to visit him later. At this moment, he was called out by Lin Danqing, who was standing behind him. Qing asked if everything was okay with him, because she understands how difficult it is for him now to endure these ridicule from his comrades. Dan, smiling, noted that no matter how offended he was, Lin shouldn't torture himself like that. At this time, the system informed Yi about Lin Qing's concern, and therefore his charisma decreased significantly. Lin was dissatisfied. Dan, in turn, presented him with a gift in the form of her savings, saying that he could leave and that would be enough for him. Charisma decreased by another 10 points. Lin replied that he did not need her care, and asked to leave. Qing said that she likes him and doesn't care what his cultivation level is, and she just wants Yi to be happy. But Lin again asked her to leave him alone. Meanwhile, charisma decreased by another 10 points. Yi understood that this was the first time they had confessed their feelings to him, and he was so diligently rejecting her. However, Dan was not going to give up either. She said that she wanted to show him something. Qing slowly approached the main character, who in turn resisted, saying that he didn't need anything from her and just wanted her to leave now. She asked him to take care of himself, and to prevent him from returning to the Lin family. His charisma dropped by 10 points again. Rejected by Qing, she burst into tears and ran away in an unknown direction. Lin realized that he would have to find a way to fight the system, since he might be left alone. Yi hurried to put on his shirt. At that moment he heard sounds in the distance. He hid behind one of the trees and began to listen more carefully. As it turned out, the Golden Blade clan was rapidly approaching him. One of them began to say that the Lin family is afraid of their clan, and they are using the marriage with Dan to favor the Lu family. Yi understood what Qing's actual goal was and why she treated him so warmly. Dan was one of the 3 beauties in Qingzhou, and it is said that they only had one cultivation base pill left, which was fed to some scum from the Lin family, while the other one pointed out that they should quickly deal with the Lin family. At this moment, suddenly something exploded in front of them. The Golden Blade people saw an old man on the road, who stated that they shot him down, and therefore demanded 100,000 gold from them as compensation. The head of their unit said that the old man was demanding money from the wrong people and advised him to get out of the way. Then the streak grabbed his horse and said that they couldn't just leave, after which, he literally easily overturned him and his horse, and appeared before them young and strong. Elder Hound of the Golden Blade clan asked who he was that he dared to ambush them. Another clan member noted that he was from the Lin family, because the fighting style was theirs. He replied that he knew too much and was chatting, asking him to tell him more about his family. The embittered elder ordered his warriors to kill Lin, which they immediately began to do. Yi asked them to stop beating him. Thus, he increased his characteristics and gained immunity to damage. Suddenly one of them noted that they had been beating him for 5 minutes. But there was no result. Lin lay calmly on the grass and smiled. One said that he was apparently a master of the body strengthening technique, and ordered them to use the sword against him. Naively believing that this would help, the warriors immediately attacked Yi. However, a moment later they were shocked as Lin simply cut the sword in half. While mocking the Golden Blade clan, Yi was having quite a fun time. The system reported an attack with a weapon of normal rank, therefore the resistance increased again. Huang stated that Lin was too arrogant and he would pay for it. After the elder hit Yi, his immunity increased again. Smiling, Lin began to beat Wan, saying that he must learn a lesson. The elder assumed that this was the same master whom the Lin family invited. He hurried to pick up the sword and said that this time Yi would die. The clan member noticed that this sword absorbs blood essence, and can become stronger to the basis of cultivation. At this time, Wan pierced his brother with a sword, saying that this was a worthy death, because the sword had become stronger. And now he will definitely be able to kill Yi, after which he attacked the main character. Having attacked with a sword, Wan was at a loss, as Lin easily repelled his blow with his hands. The elder said that this could not be, calling Yi a monster, and tried to hide. Lin replied that only with his permission could one escape. Yi exposed his torso, tearing his clothes, and said that he heard how they spoke about Qing. Lin had a dragon tattoo on his body, which meant that he was a cultivation master who appeared once every 1,000 years. Wan began to suck up to Yi, saying that he didn't mean anything bad, adding that if Lin lets him go, then he can become the owner of this sword. Yi immediately struck him, realizing how his system was constantly constrained in this, after which he still took pity on them and released the people from the Golden Blade clan. After all, he now needed a more serious opponent, namely a cultivation base rank like him. An old man watching what was happening noticed a young fighter, Lin, who defeated a master of the rank of Lian Qi. The elderly man came closer to young Yi and began to examine his muscles. Noting how strong he was, he asked why Lin was silent. Lin sadly said that he could not speak. The system notified him of a decrease in reputation among the Taoists. The old man was indignant. He said that he was the elder of Yamen, the rank of cultivation base, and Yi should not ignore him. Lin stated that he absolutely does not care who he is, and he does not care about him. The elder wanted to make friends with Yi, but did not think that he would be so rude to the elders, which he told him. Since Lin was looking for someone of cultivation foundation rank, he began to provoke the old man. He, in turn, could not understand why the guy was doing this. The elder suggested that Yi was expelled from the clan and forced to cut down trees so that he could somehow survive, like he did in his youth. The elder asked if Lin had ever studied martial arts. Then he took out a couple of books, saying that they could make friends. Yi didn't understand why the old man was so kind to him, because he was rude to him. He took the books and thanked the elder. Meanwhile, an offended clan member of Lin ran to the head and asked him to execute the impudent Yi. They insisted that Lin be executed, saying that Yi had neglected the safety of their family. The head of the family, Lin Aoshan, was doubtful, because these three had never worried about the well-being of the family before. Moreover, Lin Yi was beaten, and could he regain his strength so quickly? People continued to be outraged, demanding death punishment for Yi, who, in turn, was present at this meeting. The elder noticed him in the crowd and said that Lin must atone for his sins. While Yi received negative attitude, it increased his joy and he started smiling. This angered the elder and he declared that Lin was not allowed to behave so arrogantly. At this moment, Qing came to Ye's defense and called on them to stop this farce, especially if they still want her to marry into the Lu family. This significantly reduced Lin Yu's charisma, and he asked her not to interfere. A servant ran up to Elder Shan and said that the head asked him to wait. He reacted violently to this, saying that no one has the right to treat his family so ignorantly. Meanwhile, Mr. Lu walked down the stairs and approached the elder. He asked him if he could see his bride. Elder Yuan asked him for forgiveness for his carelessness. He noticed that he looked like a weakling. Then Shan turned to the head of the family, Aoshan, with a request to see his bride, which, in turn, didn't seem to really want Dan to marry him. Young Lu saw Qing and began showering her with compliments, saying how beautiful she was. However, Aoshan noticed that they were suitable for each other. Yi also could not resist commenting, stating that Shan was like cow dung. He ignored the quarrelsome Lin and thanked Aoshan. Suddenly, Mr. Lu still could not stand it and attacked Yi with claims, saying that he had no right to treat him like that. Aoshan apologized to Mr. Lu, saying that Yi was mentally retarded and should not be paid attention to, after which he asked the guards to take Lin out of the hall, but they could not even move him. Yuan said that he was very tired from the road, so he wanted to relax with his future wife. Grabbing Qing's hand, he invited her to go to a wonderful place, where an unusually beautiful view opened up and they could admire the scenery. But Dan unexpectedly refused his proposal. Lu noted her hot temper. Lin understood that he needed to protect poor Qing from this vile type. Yuan stated that it was better for him to leave because he had the rank of a cultivation foundation. In response, Lin just laughed, saying that the Lu family seemed to raise similar cattle. This infuriated Shan. He declared that Yi had finished his game and would kill him. Lin continued to mock him, urging him to attack first. Yuan, in turn, began to actively use abilities, one of which was the primordial blades. Aoshan noticed that this was a top-quality weapon that appeared at auction 3 years ago. Yi understood that only a spiritual weapon of the Qin Dan rank could be better than him. its power was truly crushing. The closest thing in power to a spiritual weapon, these are weapons of the highest quality. Lu said that he would show him real power, and fired several blades at Yi. Qing Dan began to worry about Lin and tried to stop him. Aoshan was perplexed by what he saw. He said that this could not be. Since Lu's swords were unable to damage Yi, he only increased his stats. And he continued to smile brazenly in his face, provoking him in every possible way, saying that Shan must try hard to harm him. Young Yuan was shocked because Lin was indeed unharmed, after which he hurried to combine the original blades for better effect. He knew that the force of the blow was not important, because he could block it. From Lu's blows, Lin's strength and joy increased, which was an advantage. Suddenly he stopped attacking Yi. The protagonist asked him to continue throwing his punches. Shan got down on one knee and said that there was no point in them fighting each other. Lin had a different opinion, answering that in that case he would beat him. Yuan said confidently that if his family stops protecting them, then the Golden Blade clan will wipe them off the face of the earth, and the consequences will be irreversible. Yi replied that a minute ago he wanted to kill him, but now he can't attack Lu. The young master said that if he wanted to, Lin could try to hit him. Only Lu had time to finish when Yi dealt him a powerful blow. He literally flew into the wall. Lin said that Shan himself asked him about it. An enraged Lu declared that he would kill their entire family because they had forgotten who their owners were. The head of Aoshan could not understand how Lin could defeat such a powerful Lu, because he was at the peak of cultivation. He tried to calm Yuan, but he ordered to break through Lin's barrier and destroy him. Tribute stated that Yi has surpassed himself today, and this will definitely affect the course of events in the future. Shan said that Lin would not live to see this future. He suddenly grabbed Qing, calling Yi pathetic, because even Dan came to his defense, saying that either he would kill her or him. Those around him could not understand what was happening to him, while Lin called on Yuan to stop. After all, Qing had absolutely nothing to do with it. He decided to play Shan's game. Dan urged Lin to quickly run away and not succumb to his provocations. Distraught, Lu said that she should not interfere with him, as he was intrigued by the way she was bleeding. Yi stated that he must release Qing, because he is at his disposal. Yuan threw him a Hua Gong pill, saying that he needed to take it. As a result, she will tear Yi into pieces, and without tricks, because it is a waste of time. Lin interrupted him by popping the capsule into his mouth and declaring that he was talking too much, after which he again began to demand that Shan release Qing Dan. Lu removed his hand from Qing's neck and said that everyone would obey him, asking Aoshan to take care of Lina. The head of the family ordered the guards to immediately take Yi to prison, who lost consciousness and collapsed on the floor. Dan asked him for forgiveness, saying that it was all because of her. The system reported that Qing was caring, and thus his charisma and joy decreased. But since he was poisoned, Lin's spiritual fortitude of reverse karma increased by 500 points. The guards instantly took him by the arms and carried him to prison. Thus, Lin received Dan's care and lowered his sympathy. Waking up in prison, he began to think about how to get out of here. Suddenly a snake bit him on the leg, thereby injecting him with a dose of poison. The system reported increased performance, and it dawned on him that the place was full of poisonous insects and snakes, which could increase his power, although they had too little damage. He allowed them to bite him for a certain time. The dungeon made him stronger. Lin wanted to collect all the poison of the local living creatures. At that moment his stomach began to growl. He urgently needed something to eat, and a guard approached him. He gave Yi a portion of lunch, which looked more like waste. Lin realized that this was clearly better than poison and would increase his performance. As soon as he reached for the plate, the guard slammed his foot down on it, knocking all the food onto the floor. Yi was seriously angry. He menacingly declared that it was his food, after which he grabbed the guard, who began to apologize to him. He said that he did not do it on purpose. Lin threw it aside and demanded that he be served a new portion of lunch. The frightened guard ran for a new lunch. Yi urged him on. A couple of seconds later, Lin saw Dan in front of him, who came to visit him. Qing also brought him lunch so he could replenish his mana. She kindly invited Lin to eat a delicious dish. Yi looked at her sadly. Then he said that his heart was already occupied by another person. Meanwhile his characteristics had decreased. Dan replied that she just wanted to thank him, asking if she was really so disgusted with him. Yi answered positively. Then Qing said goodbye to him, saying that he should take care of himself. Since he constantly gets into some kind of trouble, Lin became angry. The system reported a decrease in mood and sympathy indicators. Tribute left. Yi wanted to get acquainted with the writings of monk Jiang Hai while no one was around. In the Lin family hall, where the guard told about the incident with Yi, Aoshan thought that he was really mentally retarded. At this time, an unknown person ran in. The head of Aoshan demanded an explanation from him. Introducing himself as a member of the Baijia sect, Qian Ji Xian, he said that the sect was in trouble and they needed help. The Baijia sect actually saved Aoshan's life 20 years ago. He asked Qian what happened. Ji told the story about the poor health of their leader. That's why he was sent here to ask several masters of the Lin family to help them. Aoshan replied that he would do everything possible to help their leader. He gave some money to Xiuyan and told him to wait at the gate. While he would send the master to their sect, Qian thanked the magnanimous leader. Aoshan decided to send Yi to sort out this situation, and the guard pulled him out of the dungeon. Lin was against it, but the guard told Ji that Yi was the genius of their family, and he would help them. The main character demanded that they explain to him what was happening. Meanwhile, the system notified him of a decrease in characteristics. Yi asked Qian what happened. Xiuyan understood how little spiritual power Lin had. He thought that the Lin family did not want to help them because they sent a weak master. At that moment, the head of Aoshan approached them. Ji said that the tournament would start very soon, the winner of which will become the owner of the land from the emperor, and this is important for the 100 Blades clan. Aoshan assured Xiuyan that Lin Yi would be able to cope with this task, because he had special abilities. Turning to Lin, he asked him again. Yi was full of enthusiasm. He was delighted with this news and said that he would definitely win the tournament. Qian replied that only martial artists could participate in this tournament. Lin stated that this is not a problem, and he just needs to become this master. Dissatisfied, Ji said that it was time for him to go. The head wished them good luck in the tournament. He himself breathed out a sigh of relief, as he had finally gotten rid of Lin. The system notified Yi that he was insulted and his sympathy and reputation increased. Lin realized that now he knows when he is even mentally insulted. On the way to the tournament, Yi said that he would call him Shao Qian, because he has a difficult name. Lin noticed that the 100 Blades clan could only pitifully ask for help. Qian said that now the clan is in decline, but soon they will again be at the height of glory. Lin replied that it sounded like crazy. At that moment they were met by a girl from the 100 Sword clan. She asked if he was the one sent to help, since he only had the rank of Lian Qi. The system reported that he was being neglected, and therefore his mood improved. Yi noticed that the girls in the clan had an extremely pleasant voice, and asked her to speak more. The girl replied that it was better for him to leave here and not appear again. With her rudeness, she increased Lin's characteristics. He asked her not to stop. Yi asked her name and admired her sassy personality. The girl could not understand how to react to his nonsense, and stated that her father was the head of the clan. Lin said that he should be treated with respect, because her father invited him. She literally went crazy and hurried to expose her blade. In response, Yi just laughed, noting her extreme temper. At this moment, her father ordered you to stop behaving like this. She stated that Yi started it first. However, the head of the 100 Blades clan, Huang Mengzong, had a different opinion. The girl, in turn, nervously sat down on a stone, demonstrating her resentment. After which she hurried to leave. Yi asked her to stay, because she could earn him many more points. Huang noticed that his daughter Jiao Yu was spoiled, and he had one request. Lin greeted Menjun and said that her straightforwardness was quite cute. Huang asked Ji to give Yi a tour since it was his first time at their camp, saying that with skills like Lin's, they would definitely achieve good results. Yi received 5 points of irritability, and reduced Huang's reputation by 10 points. Lin caught himself thinking that this old man was infuriating him. Xian asked Yi to follow him. The main character did not like the polite attitude of the people in the clan. Jiao Yu was ideal for him. Meanwhile, it was already late evening. Lin was lying carefree on the bed in the room that the clan had allocated to him. He couldn't wait for tomorrow, and decided to stretch a little before going to bed. Yi took an axe and headed into the forest to chop down trees. He noted the clan's ideal location in the mountains. However, they were stationed at the very bottom of the mountains, which meant they could be attacked by wild animals. True, walls were built around the camp, which was a good idea, but they are too high. Accordingly, Lin could not get out, and began to hit the wall with an axe. After a certain time, he was still unable to break through the stone fence, but he discovered a hole in the wall nearby, and when he looked into it, he got scared, because a huge panther stood in front of him, which bared its teeth, but did not try to harm the main character. He couldn't understand why she didn't attack him, because she looked fierce. Suddenly, the panther stood on its hind legs and tried to attack him. However, she was prevented from entering by a protective barrier that she could not overcome, which only made her angrier. Lin, in turn, began to actively tease her. Then he stuck his hand through the magical barrier and began to stroke the panther. He did not understand why the animal did not reach him, while he could easily pass through the barrier. At a certain moment, the panther grabbed his hand with its mouth and bit him. His joy and strength increased, as the system immediately informed him about. Thus, having received little damage, he realized that she was not particularly dangerous. But the panther suddenly dug its claws into his clothes and pulled him along. Literally a moment later, Lin found himself on the other side of the fence. He still could not understand on what principle the protective barrier worked. Slowly raising his head, he turned his attention to the ferocious panthers, who hastened to surround him, which he was only happy about. By starting to beat the wild cats, Lin wanted to provoke them, so that they start attacking and biting him, and in this way he will earn points for himself. What ultimately happened was that the system did not have time to notify him of the damage being done and the strength being increased. The panthers attacked him from all sides, they bit his arms and legs. After some time, even the female predators from the cat family got tired. Lin realized that this was their maximum. Besides, it was already dawn and they had to return. Moreover, with the rude Jiaoyu, Yi could improve his characteristics much faster. The panthers tried to stop him, but Lin threw them around like toys. Declaring that he was too boring and tired of them, the predatory cats were at a loss. He returned to bed where he soon fell asleep. He was awakened by loud cries. Lin reluctantly opened his sleepy eyes, and then hurried to go outside, where I started asking people what happened and why there was so much noise. One of the 100-Blade clan members said that not far from the hole in the wall, they found mountains of corpses of wild animals. When they saw E, they said that he didn't have to go out, because he could get hurt. Lin asked them to show him this place, saying that he had never seen ferocious animals. One of them noted his excessive self-confidence, which he admired. Another said that there was nothing interesting there, because someone had already killed them. Yi followed the clan members, remembering how he dealt with them last night. Arriving at the scene of the incident with the head of the Menzin clan, they looked around. After which, Lin asked Wan what happened here. The head replied that he did not know, because the patrolling guards did not see anyone else. At that moment it dawned on him. Menzin sharply turned his gaze to Yi, who began to make excuses, saying that he had nothing to do with what happened. After all, if everyone finds out that this is his doing, then the system will bring him to the grave. Suddenly, a beaten clan member landed near them. He said that the Thousand Blades clan had ambushed them, adding that Yu and brother Qian were in danger. Lin wanted to save them. He urged the head of the clan to take action, and will immediately go to their aid. Menzin, in turn, understood that if he fought them face to face, they would lose. Yi urged him not to reason but to act, while he himself was already running towards danger. Huang ordered his men to follow him to save his daughter and Ji. Meanwhile, Huang Jiaoyu was fighting with a robber from the Thousand Swords clan. He stated that she could not cope with him, especially with such a meager level of skills, urging her to immediately surrender, because otherwise a disastrous outcome awaits her, adding that he was already at the second stage of cultivation, while their leader had reached the first. Embittered Yu called him a scumbag, because they wouldn't have let them in if they hadn't said that they came to apologize. He replied smiling that they should blame themselves for their own naivety, then hit Ji. Jiao stated that the 100-Blade clan was not their property and tried to attack it again. The 1000-Blade clan member grabbed Yu's hand and said that she couldn't kill him. At this time, a certain sign shone on her head, after which she hit him. The bandit backed away. He was perplexed and did not understand why she continued to fight. Declaring that he would kill her now, he began to activate an unknown ability. His hands sparkled with some kind of magic. Yu understood that this was the end. She mentally asked for forgiveness from her father, when suddenly Lin's voice called out to her, who said that she was not as strong as she was rude. Jiao was shocked by his sudden appearance and insulted him again. He didn't understand how it happens that when he wants to help, everything turns against him. Lin reluctantly insulted her in response, who did not know how to behave. Seeing her father, Huang Jiao immediately ran into his arms. The Thousand Swords clan member asked who he was and how dare he interfere. Lin, in his usual manner, began to say that he was the father, calling him his son. The embittered bandit replied that even his mother did not know who his father was. He hurried to use the Shining Sky 9-strike technique. The system counted all 9 hits, which Yi was pleasantly surprised by. As a result of which an explosion occurred. Yu asked her father to help Lin. Medzan immediately attacked him, calling him to fight in a fair fight. The member of the Thousand Swords clan was only glad of this, because he wanted to deal with the head of the clan with his own hands. However, the main character again stood in his way, this time with increased characteristics. The bandit was dumbfounded, because someone who was at the 4th level of cultivation could not resist his blade. Huang asked Yi if he was okay. Lin replied that everything was fine. Yi literally burst into flames, as if a fiery dragon was flying around him. He asked the sharply frightened robber if he had shown all his power. The Thousand Blade clan member sweated with fear and begged for mercy, but Lin could no longer be stopped. He said that he had not even started yet, and he was already begging to stop and save his miserable life. Then he hit him. The distraught bandit noticed that he was his father and again tearfully asked for mercy. Menzan asked Yi to still spare this guy, for the safety of the Hundreds of Swords clan. Lin smiled and replied that he really didn't like trouble, but the beaten robber began to provoke Yi, for which he paid. Lin turned around sharply and struck him with lightning speed. The robber was literally choking on blood. Yi still smiled, and he said that he cannot pass by when he sees injustice. The main character noticed that the whole problem was the weak head of the Hundred Swords clan. Huang was angry but remained silent. Yu thanked her savior, adding that he needs to leave, since the Thousand Swords clan will return to take revenge. The characteristics dropped sharply. Yi again began to provoke her to be rude, saying that she did not dare to command him. Jiao stated that she was worried about him, but now she is indifferent to his fate. She began to grumble again, which Lin liked as his performance increased again. Thoughtful, Menzan asked Yi to step aside and talk to him. Lin assumed that they wanted to lock him up and donate thousands of swords to the clan. Indeed, in this case, they will save both their lives and the existence of the entire clan of Hundreds of Swords. Huang said that he could not repay his kindness and asked him to protect you in the future. Jiao was at a loss to hear her wise father's request. Lin inquired in surprise from the head of the Hundred Swords clan, Menzan. How did it happen that their clan became so weak? Wan wondered. Then he replied that he was ashamed to admit, but he used to consider himself the best and the strongest, and that all the talents belonged to his Hundreds of Swords clan. Yi asked to tell briefly. Yu then stated that the Thousand Swords clan was always jealous of their clan's prosperity, and they began to attack them. By luring their people away, Shui Mengshan, who was killed by Lin, is one person, but they will take this chance and take revenge. Menzan asked not to save their clan of Hundreds of Swords, but to protect only you. Yi replied that if they come again, he will definitely deal with them. Jiao noticed that the leader of their clan would soon break through the creation of the foundation, and he had time to escape. Ye's eyes lit up and he asked how much strength Huang had left after cultivation. Menzan replied that he was in the 2nd stage of creating the foundation, but was able to strike the 8th stage. Lin asked Huang to hit him immediately, saying that should be enough. The head said that he would not do this to the person who saved his daughter, but Lin still did not let up and urged him to hit as hard as possible. Menzan stated that he has been sharpening the sword with his blood for years, and because he asks him to do so, then he should be extremely careful with his desires, because the consequences will be irreversible. Lin felt a pulse of power in the blade. He was indeed at the 8th stage of foundation creation. He thought that after such a strong blow, his characteristics would increase significantly. Wan struck with a sword. As a result, the main character began to vomit blood, and his performance improved. His body could withstand such power. Yu asked why his father hit him so hard. Menzan replied that he himself asked him about it. Jiao asked why Yi wanted to be beaten. Lin stated that he would be fine after a while. His characteristics were constantly increasing. Yi understood that he should control himself, because in the future he will meet a strong opponent, and he may explode from blood and qi. Having recovered a little, Lin hurried to thank the head of the clan. He, in turn, thought that Yi had become insane because of him. Meanwhile, in the camp of the Thousand Swords clan, the assistant came to the head of the clan. He stated that Meng Shan was killed by the Hundred Sword clan. In response, the sect leader laughed, having said that they had a great chance to finally destroy their sect. Since the expert is helping them, he will help eliminate their clan of hundreds of swords, by giving the elder an aphrodisiac that even a master with the peak of foundation creation could not handle. They will wait for the right moment when you will use the miracle potion to humiliate the daughter of their sect. The elder recognized his plan as ideal, and said that it would definitely work. The leader of the Thousand Swords clan ordered his assistant to take extra poison in case something didn't go according to plan. After a certain time, night came. In the kitchen of the clan there were hundreds of swords. Soup was being cooked. The elder quietly entered the kitchen and saw this medicinal soup. Then he poured the contents of the bottle into it, assuming that the soup was being prepared for an expert. Then he hurried to hide through the window just as quietly and leave their camp. A couple of minutes later, Yu came into the kitchen. She took a ladle and tasted the soup. Realizing that he was ready, she decided to take it to Lin and treat him, who was lying on the bed, and thought that by tomorrow he would definitely come to his senses. Jiao brought him a tonic and told him that he should drink it. He approached her in surprise and noted that she also knew how to cook. Speaking about the terrible smell of the soup, like a corpse, Yu stated that it was full of spiritual energy. And her cooking is excellent. Lin snatched a bowl of soup from her and said that he would definitely try it. After which Huang Jiao poured herself a bowl, and after tasting the soup, she began to feel strange. The system notified Yi that his sanity had increased by 50 points because he drank a powerful aphrodisiac. Lin thought that Menjun wanted to frame his daughter in this way. A moment later, Jiao stated that she felt too hot and stuffy. She felt extremely uncomfortable and did not understand what was happening to her. Yi Lin, in turn, understood everything perfectly and smiled mysteriously looking at Yu. Suddenly Jiao fell to the floor and seemed to be trying to reach something. Yu was clearly not herself. She said that her clothes had become very tight. Yi didn't understand what the point was in this rather strange situation. Huang Jiao pushed Lin, causing them to fall to the floor, which was extremely painful for the main character, since he had not yet recovered. Yu stated that, unlike others, he really gives her strange feelings. After receiving Huang's praise, the system notified him of the reduced favorability. Lin didn't know what to do, because there was too little energy left in his hand. He remembered how the old man had given him cultivation techniques. In this connection, he had one idea that he wanted to implement. Lin asked Jiao for forgiveness, and began to use one of the techniques. His palm glowed green. Yu gradually calmed down, after which she seemed to lose consciousness. Lin realized that it was necessary to begin treatment. He placed his palm against her body. The effect was immediate. Jiao said that she was in a lot of pain and couldn't stand it anymore. Yi realized that it was actually an assimilation of spiritual power and not an aphrodisiac. Then he hastened to resort to extreme measures. He picked her up and carried her to the pool. Lin shouted at Menzin to take his daughter and throw Yu into the water, which, in turn, instantly came to its senses and began to insult Yi. Huang Jiao suddenly wondered what happened, because she just brought him soup. At this time, the worried head of Menzin ran out. He asked what happened and why she was in the water. Meanwhile, Yu finally realized everything and felt ashamed. Lin stated that he wanted to know why Huang was doing this to him. Menjun didn't understand what they were talking about. He assumed that he really didn't know about this situation. Lin said that there was an aphrodisiac in the soup that you brought him, and if it wasn't him, then perhaps Jiao did it. But if it's not her, then he's at a loss as to what's going on and who needed it. At that moment, Yu called out to him. Yi asked what she wanted. Sweet Jiao asked him for forgiveness and thanked him for what he had done. Thus, Lin received a decrease in all his characteristics, and hurried to run away from Yu. And only Menzin understood everything. In fact, this was done by the clan of 1,000 Swords, which again aimed at his daughter. However, in everything that happened, Yi also found advantages, because with the help of this kind of mistakes, he will only become stronger. He began to master the spiritual cultivation technique that the old man gave him. Lin learned that the effect of cultivation in his body was the opposite, and it would eliminate the rush of qi and blood. But the most important part was that after learning the cultivation technique once, he would already become stronger. And forbidden techniques with terrible side effects will become treasures in his hands. He wanted to get as many of these techniques as possible when he was suddenly interrupted by Wan. He opened the door and asked what he wanted, not understanding why the old man was still awake. Menzin said that the day after tomorrow the tournament would take place, and tomorrow they would go to the mouth of the mountain valley for training camp. And he just came to tell him about it. Lin said that he understood everything and asked him to leave him alone. But Wan still did not let up. He said that he did not pour spiritual assimilation into the soup, and most likely one of the Thousand Swords clan snuck into their kitchen and did this. The head urged Yi to be careful. The main character replied that he already understood this, while the elder from the Thousand Blades sect watched what was happening. He couldn't believe that Master Lin remained unperturbed even after taking such a strong potion, after which he hurried to hide, because he might have been noticed. He naively believed that he would still find a way to destroy Yi. Lin still couldn't sleep. He wanted to find an excuse not to return to the Lin family anymore. Basically, of course, it was about Dan Qing, who could not get rid of him. Suddenly he had an idea. If he could get some of the aphrodisiac, after which he adds it to her food and begins to behave more obscenely, she will definitely stop loving him. It's a pity that the cup with the miracle potion was spilled, and a new one needed to be found. True, it was not easy to get it, especially since he had no idea where to look for it. While the elder of the Thousand Blades clan resorted to a new plan, he poured the strongest poison into the food, and naively believed that it would definitely work. Under the guise of a servant, he knocked on Lin's chambers and said that he had been ordered by Menzin to bring a snack, which Yi was immensely happy about, and gladly accepted the late dinner. The elder realized that it didn't matter how strong he was, because Lin was still just as naive. The food, in turn, was very tasty. Yi began to eat it greedily. After a short period of time, he thought that Lin was already dead. The elder hurried to take off his servant's clothes and head to Ye's room, where another surprise awaited him, which he clearly did not predict. He saw how the main character calmly finished his dinner, and was unharmed. Lin said that since he helped him cultivate, he would give him a choice. Then I asked him what kind of death he would choose. An elder from the Thousand Swords sect stated that Yi should have died from poison. Lin grabbed him by the throat and demanded that he give him all the poison he had left. In the end, he still gave him a bottle with the strongest poison. Yi immediately poured all the poison into himself, thinking that if he drank it every day, he would become the strongest. His characteristics increased by 300 points. Lin said that he could not leave him alive, since he saw his secret. And he asked where else he could get this poison. A bright light spilled from the windows of the building. Wan instantly ran to Ye's house. He discovered a beaten spy who had infiltrated their camp. Coming closer, Menzin recognized him as the third elder of the clan, Thousand Swords. An absolutely calm Lin came towards him and said that he needed to take a little walk. Thus, the main character obtained both the aphrodisiac and the poison, and now he will be able to change Qing's opinion of himself and become stronger. In addition, at the same time, he will be able to deal with the problems of the sect, Hundreds of Swords. And this was only possible if the clan of 1,000 Blades was destroyed. The next morning, Ji asked Yu if her father had forgotten to tell Yi about the preparations. Jiao replied that her father would not forget about this, and he would definitely come. The clan member noticed that Lin most likely ran away and did not want to help them. At that moment, a joyful Yi approached them and asked if they were waiting for him. Ji asked why he had an axe in his hand, suggesting that he had been running to cut down trees in the morning. Lin threw out the axe and urged them to hurry up so as not to be late in any case. Yu noted his ridiculous appearance, saying that he would embarrass their clan. He looked at his clothes and realized that they were really dirty. Jiao gave him clean clothes and asked him to change so that no one would perceive him as a beggar. Otherwise, others will think that the Hundred Swords clan picked him up on the street. Since Lin was a guy with no complexes, he quickly began to change clothes in front of everyone. At which Yu became furious, saying that he had to go to the room for this, then began to insult him. The characteristics increased again, which is what Yi wanted. He asked if she had sewn these clothes. Jiao stated that she would never sew clothes for a ragamuffin like him. Having thrown a couple more insults at him, they nevertheless set off. Yi realized that this was his type. After some time, they successfully reached the gates of the capital. Lin noticed that it was quite far away, and they must look bold from the outside. Seeing the Hundred Sword clan, one of the managers ordered the guards to close the gate. Lin and the others suddenly found the gate starting to close. They realized that they were not eager to see them at this competition. Huang Yu urged everyone to hurry up because they might not make it in time. He noted how slowly she was running, even though she asked everyone to hurry up. Due to the resulting backlash, the manager said that after the gates were closed, no one would be allowed inside, adding that anyone who disobeys this rule will simply die. Lin still managed to insert his hand into the opening, and thereby prevented the gate from completely closing. Having gone inside, Yu attacked the manager with complaints, because he saw that they were approaching. Jiao asked why he began to close the gate. The man replied that he considered her clan unworthy to take part in the tournament. While they were figuring out which of them was right, Lin approached one of the gates, after which he tore it off its hinges. The manager was at a loss. While he said that since there was no longer a gate, they would probably go inside. The guards immediately attacked them, saying that no one was allowed to behave like that. Yu replied that he was in vain relying on his extremely weak servants. The elder said that with people like them, there is no need to call a martial arts master. Yi noticed that His Excellency no longer needed yin and yang, saying that he would beat them all if necessary. Meanwhile, an unknown person approached them. He recognized the guy as a famous master from the Lin family, and jokingly asked him how it happened that he became a mercenary. Yi pretended to be afraid of him like a ghost, noting his unfavorable appearance. While Li Xuan was angry, Lin asked Ji who this scarecrow was. Xian replied that this was the Furious Swords clan's disciple, Yuan Li Xuan, who had just reached the initial stage of foundation creation. Yi brought him a bag of money. Yuan thought that he wanted to pay him for saving his life. Lin asked him to take this money so that he could find a good doctor who could improve his ugly face at least a little. It didn't take long for Li Xuan to react violently. He took out his sword and said that he would kill him. The main character continued to make jokes and dare Yuanyu, thereby provoking him. Li Xuan said that he would cut him into pieces and destroy the kingdom of Qi, after which he immediately attacked Lin, who received an increase in power points. He knocked his blade away with his hand, and noticed that it was so strong. Yuan couldn't believe that Yi easily withstood his blow without any damage. Li Xuan continued to deliver a series of blows with his sword all over Lin's body, but failed to harm him. On the contrary, Yi, smiling, took his blows upon himself and increased his performance. Then he hit the blade of Li Xuan's blade, thereby breaking his sword into small pieces. Yu was impressed by Lin's level of skill. Yuan, who flew away, also did not expect such a powerful response from Yi. He couldn't believe that his blade had shattered into small pieces. Lin said that in gratitude for the warm-up, he would straighten his face, after which he rushed to beat Li Xuan, literally painting his face. Yi noted that he looks much more attractive now. Jiao understood that Lin could suppress the attacks of the initial stage of foundation creation. Yi said that his clothes were torn, and her painstaking work was wasted on him. Yu replied that she had foreseen this option, and therefore prepared several sets of clothes for him. The main character thought about it, realizing that he should work harder, because she wasn't even angry. Suddenly, Lin grabbed Huang Jiao's head and inquired, "How does she want to deal with him?" pointing to the servant who did not want to let them in. Seeing the elder of the capital Qingzhou, he fell at his feet and declared that the Hundreds of Swords clan broke the gate and beat all the servants. He demanded their disqualification from the competition, and they were generally late for the training camp. Yu tried to convince the elder otherwise and tell the truth, but Lin began to tug at her clothes, hinting that she should calm down. Yi said that maybe now is the right time to return the favor. Elder Jiang asked how Lin was doing, calling him younger brother. Ji Xian and Huang Jiao were shocked because he actually addressed him as brother. The servant also could not find words, his indignation knew no bounds. The 100-Sword clan thought that since he was on good terms with Qizhou, they would definitely take part in the tournament, while the beaten servants understood that this was most likely the end. Lin said that he came here to take part in a martial arts competition, urging him to get down to business. Yi noticed that by people's reactions, one can understand how much power and authority Hai Jiang has in the tournament. He replied that he was responsible for the competition. Lin realized that he was lucky, because if he had offended him then, he could not even dream of any tournament now. Hai asked Yi why he came with a clan of Hundreds of Swords. Lin replied that it was an accident. The elder said that as part of a weak clan he would have a very difficult time in the tournament. But Yi did not strive for only one power and he felt good with these people, which is what he told Hai Jiang. Moreover, they have Princess Tsundra, who always says something that is not on her mind. The elder was impressed by Yi, because he saw himself in him when he was younger. The system notified him that he had received a compliment from Daoist Jiang Hai, which Lin didn't like, so he decided to test the wise Jiang, saying that he urgently needed to leave because he forgot to put on his underwear. The elder did not react in any way. This meant that everything was in order. You asked why he returned, and did not please him, adding that she initially thought he was a slightly different person, but at least he has pride. But she cannot believe that he relies on a relationship with someone. Yi hastened to convince her otherwise. Jiao said that the 100 Swords clan must win the tournament, but even if they lose, it must be worthy. Yi said that she does not have a simple character, but she still has positive qualities, after which he confidently declared and promised her to win the competition. As always, Jiao thought one thing, but said something completely different, calling him narcissistic, because he must win the tournament not in words, but in deeds. Otherwise, she would have to do everything herself, so Lin suggested that she go first and set an example. Yu agreed, but Ji stopped her, saying that Yi was their last hope, and perhaps he would actually win the competition. Lin noted that the tournament would begin soon and called on the clan to be a good support for him. Standing on the competition platform, Hai Jiang said that each clan could send its best fighter, and since they fight on blessed ground, they are forbidden to use dirty tricks. Moreover, killing their opponents, the participants listened carefully to the elder. Yi suggested that Jiang has weight in the political arena, and perhaps everything will not be so simple. The elder added that they would compete in a 1-by-1 format until no one challenges the winner. Then he asked if anyone wanted to speak first. Lin took a step forward. You tried to stop him, asking what he was doing. Yi calmly answered, entering the ring. Jiao said that it is best to go out in the final fights, since this is a fight in turns. Lin noted that she herself said how she wanted to win with dignity. She replied that playing by the rules is already worthy of respect. At this moment, the muscular big guy decided to enter the ring first. He said that since everyone is a coward, he would do the others a favor. Ji said that this is a disciple from the Martial Fist clan, and he is in the third stage of establishing a foundation. Also, this clan essentially does not need a new land, and their presence at the tournament was suspicious. Meanwhile, Yi decided to look around for the 1,000 Sword clan and asked the others about them. Yu stated that he would not like to see them here, so as not to be nervous again. At this time, Xian urged them to focus directly on the competition. Lin rushed to enter the ring. Yu asked him to wait until the big man got tired. However, Yi stated that since he still has to fight, it makes no difference whether he comes out first or last. The self-confident bully noted Lin's courage, saying that his clan was nothing but scum. The main character urged him to give his best and show no mercy. Hai approached Yi and said that not being afraid of battles is the right path to strength. By supporting Lin, Jiang thereby significantly reduced his performance, which he had no idea about. Yi tried not to show his irritation and kept himself under control. Hai Jiang said, in order to prevent death, they will make regeneration talismans, which both teams were provided with, and this talisman will help you recover quickly, only if they did not receive extremely serious injuries during the battle, which Lin was not happy about, since his characteristics decreased again. His health and stamina lost 300 points each, and his regeneration lost 500. The big man said that he admired Ye's courage, and therefore would fight without his mace. Lin replied that this was not necessary, since he had received additional strength before the fight, but the guy said that it didn't matter, and even if he had taken strength-increasing pills, the result would have been the same. Yu supported the main character, which only aggravated the situation and took away his power points. At that moment, the big man rushed towards Lin with lightning speed and struck him. Yi blocked it, and the system reported an increase in performance. However, his bone in his hand was broken. Lin didn't understand why he always got the bad end of the stick. Then the big man soared into the heights to concentrate and force his blow. Yi got ready, but the regeneration talisman only hindered him, as it reduced his health level, and if it weren't for Lin's skill, which could resist this effect, then everything would have ended in tears. The bully still grabbed his mace and rushed to run towards Yi, saying that he was extremely naive. However, Lin successfully counterattacked him with a crushing blow, saying that he was too noisy. He subsequently won the first fight with just one concentrated blow. Dissatisfied spectators began to say that the regeneration talisman helped Yi, And Hong Yen Wu's spiritual weapon was in poor condition, and he had nothing to be proud of. The self-confident Lin declared that they were just scum and cowards. Having provoked people to be rude, Yi began to bathe in the reinforcement points that flew at him. Even though they were small, there were a lot of them. He wanted to use this technique for getting points in the future. Wang Yihu stood in the crowd. He thought that Yi had used a lot of enhancement spells, and besides, Hai was partial to him. Wang hurried to enter the ring next, and praised Master Lin. Having offered him a fight, Yi naturally was all for it and agreed. Jiang suggested that Lin take a break for a couple of minutes and take another talisman. But the main character immediately abandoned this idea, assuring that he still feels the power of the first talisman. Jiang said that he was for a fair fight, and therefore would give the talisman to Wang Yihu. Yihu said that he knows about Lin's abilities, because he relies on his spells. However, he will have to try hard to win this fight. Because he is the strongest, Van began to generate some kind of dark magic in his hands, saying how sorry he was that Yi entered the ring against him, after which he sent a magic ball at him. Noticing his ability to weaken all of his spells, Lin was surprised by such an opponent. Within a few seconds, Yi was literally swallowed up by dark matter. Yihu, in turn, hastened to attack Lin, saying that victory would be his. Yi replied that it was amazing and asked Wang to teach him such techniques. After a couple of seconds, Yihu tried to thrust his blade into him, but it crumbled as if Lin was made of steel. Wang was shocked and stated that Yi is not a man but a monster, because his sword is at the stage of creating the base. Yihu tried to leave the arena in a hurry, and instantly paid for it. Having turned into ashes, Lin could not understand what happened to him. Hai Jiang stated that during the fight, it is forbidden to leave the ring, after which he called the next fighter. The unknown girl said that it was finally her turn. Entering the ring, she asked Yi to take pity on her scabies clan, which needed this land. And if he agrees to give them the land, they will certainly thank him. However, this kind of manipulation had no effect on Lin. The girl tried in vain to seduce the main character, saying that she would not remain in debt. Yi suddenly lost all worldly desires and was unshakable, after which he slapped her and said that he could help her with her problems. The girl seemed to lose consciousness and collapsed like a dead weight on the ground. Hai Jiang enjoyed watching what was happening and entered the arena, and he stated that everyone should have understood the strength of the clan, hundreds of swords, then asked if there were anyone else interested. Everyone began to deny, realizing what outcome could await them. They thought that someone was secretly helping Yi. Elder Hai said that he wanted to express his feelings before he announced the results of the tournament. Jiang noted that it does not matter whether the one who challenges him loses or wins. And although Jiang is currently the god of this competitive arena, but for him, especially after today, Lin is the god. After which, the elder knelt down in front of him and bowed his head. Ji Xian and Jiao Yu couldn't believe that the great Jiang Hai recognized Ye's strength. Thus, Lin became the owner of the blessed land, as Hai proclaimed. The public was delighted, people began to shower Yi with compliments, and his performance gradually decreased. What Lin saw was their hypocrisy, because not so long ago they insulted him and seemed to hate him. Satisfied with himself, Yi went down the stairs where Yu was waiting for him. He noted that the mission was completed, and the land was now theirs. Jiao wanted to thank him, but Lin said that this should not be done in public. And if she really wants to express gratitude to him, then she can come to him today. It didn't take long for Yu to react violently and she began to insult him, thus significantly increasing his performance. Yi was pleased with himself. Ji ran up to Lin to thank him, and asked him to accept gratitude from their entire clan. Yi couldn't understand what was going to happen now. Xian called the others to him, after which Ji began a slow countdown of 3 seconds. Lin froze in anticipation. The 100-sword clan members hurried to form a line. After 3 seconds had passed, Xian called for them to begin their performance. Everyone as one began to sing a sweet song to Lin, in which they thanked their savior. Having dedicated an entire theatrical introduction to him, they smiled at him. Xian himself also took part in the production, and even sang a couple of lines, which literally infuriated the main character, and he convincingly asked them to stop. At that moment, an agitated Yu approached him and began to speak hesitantly, that he really wants to thank him when they return to the clan camp. What Yi never expected from the rude Huang Jiao made him feel uneasy. Lin suddenly rushed to run away from her, and Yu, who did not understand anything, asked where he was going. Having run into the forest, out of anger, he began to actively cut down trees with his bare hands. After all, despite the fact that the system was quite well thought out, he still wanted to sometimes receive friendly comments addressed to him. At the same time, live like an ordinary person, and get away from this super powerful force. But unfortunately, he couldn't change anything. At that moment, Elder Jiang approached him. He asked him why he was so upset, because he had just won the tournament. Lin replied that in life he likes to hear negative reviews about himself, and when he was praised he became uncomfortable. Jiang stated that he seemed to have grown up with a critical attitude towards himself, and in fact there are not many such people anymore. After which, he invited Yi to join the government of the capital, as a result of which he received an increase in anger. Lin asked what he would have to do if he accepted his offer. Hai Jiang took out a list of available government positions and said that Yi could work as anyone, but he would advise him to become a government security guard, adding that usually security guards do little work and are not given difficult tasks. Hai handed him a list, which Lin immediately began to study, and asked about the position, a fellow student. Jiang replied that for this you need to be a companion for young and spoiled gentlemen, and there were already those who could not cope with this job. Yi said that he wanted to become a fellow student. Hai agreed, and noted the possibility of changing positions at any time. He thought that Lin, like the others, would soon leave this position, adding that Yi is too young, and you shouldn't take everything so seriously. The main character understood that in this way he would not need to return to the Lin family. Moreover, it is not far from the clan's blessed land, hundreds of swords. But the most important thing is that a lot of experience points and rich young masters await him. This is not just a task for a companion, but a machine that produces experience points. Jiang said that in 3 days, the government will invite the cultivators participating in the competition to gather herbs together, adding that young Master Lin must be there in a timely manner. Yi naturally promised that he would arrive on time and would not create any problems. He once again decided to remind Hai Jiang about working as a study companion. Hai replied that he would take up this issue after the competition took place. Jiang noted that Lin should know even if the Thousand Blades clan was not at the tournament. Then in this competition to collect spiritual herbs, they will take part. Yi said that this was good, but he expected to see them at the last tournament. Hai Jiang thought that he might be wrong about Lin. Meanwhile, Xian Ji returned to the hotel in the 100 Sword clan, which he reported, who hurried to find out why he came alone, and where Yi. Huang Jiao wanted to know where he went, but Ji replied that he had no idea where to look for him. You noticed that even if he returned, the Thousand Swords clan would not leave him alone. In this connection, Jiao began to think about what to do next with Lin. In addition, she hoped that Yi would not forget about their Stony Blades clan. Xian said that she should be more polite with Lin. Besides, she is worried about him for asking. Elder sister Jiao reacted violently to his words and stated that she did not think about Yi at all. Ji hurried to leave the embittered and unbalanced Yu, saying that he needed to go practice. At this time, in the clan of 1,000 Swords, the head uttered a local saying, "The mantis chases the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. And very soon they will take the opportunity to destroy hundreds of swords." The people were in solidarity with the leader. He stated that the 100 Blades sect now had a blessed land, which he will soon take away from them, and turn their clan into his slaves. The head wanted to humiliate Huang Jiao, the daughter of the clan leader, by depriving her of her dignity, and her small and cunning assistant Lin, who was the key to victory. He dreamed of burying the entire 100 Blades sect, including Master Yi. His impudent face broke into a smile. The clan members supported him. Yu, in turn, was bored at the hotel, and wondered where Lin could have gone. At that second, the door to her room suddenly opened, and the main character stood on the threshold. He asked if she was thinking about him. Jiao happily greeted Yi, after which she stated that he should have returned to the Lin family, because he had finished his work, but instead came again to annoy her. The system reported an increase in indicators. Yi smiled and asked Yu if what she told him in the morning was valid. Embittered, Huang Jiao changed her mood like a record and replied that she had not told him anything. Suddenly, Lin approached her and asked her not to go to the spiritual herb harvesting competition tomorrow. But you said that the Thousand Blades clan was participating in the tournament, and she couldn't help but go. Yi said that it looks like a conspiracy, because they did not participate in the previous tournament, and perhaps she is their main target. But Jiao persisted and was extremely stubborn, answering what people might think about them. At that time, she asked him for help because she was desperate, but now she doesn't need his advice. Besides, he will return to the Lin family. Moreover, you said that she heard about her elder sister who was waiting for him there. The main character was shocked, he didn't know what to answer her, and how to explain everything to Huang Jiao. He just sighed heavily, after which he said that in any case, he would defend her at the competition tomorrow. You looked pitifully into his eyes. She wanted him to remain in the Hundred Swords clan forever. After leaving young Jiao's chambers, Lin went out into the courtyard to catch his breath. The system notified him of increased characteristics. Because you showed feelings for him, Yi realized that she, like Dan Qing, fell in love with him. But the main thing for him was that she remained herself, just as impudent and rude. Sad Lin caught himself thinking that he was unhappy, and did not know what to do. The next morning, all clan representatives were informed that the collection of spiritual herbs had begun. Ji looked out for the Thousand Swords sect in the crowd, because the competition had already begun and they weren't there, but Yu was thinking that Yi would leave after the tournament. Hai Jiang said that behind him was the Qingzhou Spiritual Cultivation Mountain. People started saying that the government had not allowed anyone to go there for 10 years. Hai said that the government leader realized how difficult it was for the clans, and therefore opened access to the mountain. At this moment, the head of the Thousand Swords clan thanked him for the opportunity to go to the mountain. After all, in this way they can improve, after which several swords were stabbed into the ground in front of Jiang. Hai asked what they were doing here, since they did not participate in the previous tournament. The sect leader replied that the Thousand Blades clan should not be underestimated, because putting on a show to gain land is not enough. He literally flew on his sword, which people began to actively discuss, because he had overcome the stage of creating the foundation. It is not surprising that he is not afraid to behave this way in front of the government. The people were furious, but at the same time they admired the strength of the head of the clan, a Thousand Blades. Jiang pointed out that following the wind and waiting for the perfect moment to create momentum is not difficult. The leader said that this was a spiritual grass-gathering convention, and would they really be prohibited from taking part in the tournament? Lin realized that now was his exit. He unceremoniously headed to the epicenter of events, pushing everyone along the way. As a result, one of the Thousand Sword clan members landed at the feet of the clan head. He noticed that there is no point in crowding so much, because a person should breathe freely. The leader of the Thousand Blades sect said that Lin hit his disciple, but he began to laugh it off, saying that he was a good boy and couldn't beat people up. A disciple from the Thousand Swords clan stated that he took advantage of the moment and struck him. The main character continued to mock him, saying that there was no such thing. The head of the sect flashed an allegory that newborn calves are not afraid of tigers, but they will still be eaten. Hai Jiang hastened to introduce Lin, who is speaking at this congress, to him from the government of the capital. Ji and Yu couldn't believe that Yi had joined the government so quickly. His characteristics began to actively increase, because Lin began to be condemned for such sudden cooperation. In connection with this, he realized that there were no other claims to the imperial court and the community of cultivators. The elder asked the sect leader if they would stick to the plan. He assured that there was no need to worry about this. The leader said that everyone in the world follows profit and feelings, and he has his own plan of action. At this moment, Hai Jiang turned to Yi and said that he knew how much he missed his Lin family, and that beautiful Qing. Therefore, he arranged for the Lin family to also take part in the competition. Yi could not control himself. He was shocked by this information. After which Dan approached him. Lin noted that they had not seen her for a long time. Qing came closer to him and smiled. She was very happy to see him. Yu became furious and asked Xian who this woman was and why she came so close to Yi. Ji replied that this was the same eldest sister from the Lin family. Jia went to find out what was wrong, saying that she didn't want Yi to fool anyone else. Dan asked why his complexion was so bad. Yu unceremoniously burst into their conversation. She stated that she had not seen him all night. Lin understood that he was in a trap that Jiang Hai had created for him. Huang Jiao and Dan Qing began to look at each other. Then Qing asked, "Who is she?" Yu proudly replied that she is the daughter of the head of the clan, Hundreds of Swords. And at the moment, the main character is her subordinate. Dan noticed that this is the weakest sect, where they sent Yi to help them, and it turns out that she is the reason for her separation from him. Jiao demanded that Lin stop wasting time on strangers, because the Congress would begin soon. Dan, in turn, stated that this was not cultural, calling her not grateful for his help. Yi asked them to talk to each other normally, and in the meantime it was time for him to go. Qing said that a career is very important, and she is happy for him since he found a job in the capital government, adding that if he wanted to propose marriage, then he would not have to worry about the Lu and Lin families. The system reported reduced performance as a result of the care shown by Dan. Lin Yi literally boiled with anger, saying that Hai Jiang urgently called him, and he needs to go to him, and in the meantime they can have a nice conversation with you. The main character blamed the system, which could not bring his feelings back to normal. Seeing Yi Jiang asked why he did not accompany his two beauties, but came to look for him. Lin replied that it seemed to him that he was calling him, but if not, then he would go then. Hai asked him to wait, saying that he needed Ye's help. Lin smiled and replied that he was not one of those who did not repay kindness. Jiang said that he is too old and has to rely on external forces. Therefore, if Lin can find a high-quality spiritual medicinal herb, then he should just give it to Hai. However, if anyone finds out about this, it will be handed over to the government. Jiang suggested that he divide the collected herbs equally. Yi agreed. At this time, Yu was watching them. She wanted to understand what he was up to. Suddenly Dan Qing's voice called out to her and she asked if her name was Huang Jiao. Yu responded positively, after which she assumed that Qing wanted to fight her, but she told her about her feelings for Lin. Jiao was shocked and asked why she was telling her about this. Dan hastened to apologize for her recent statement, noting that soon her clan will definitely rise. After which she bowed her head in front of her. Yu felt awkward and she replied that she did not blame her for anything. Qing started crying and Jiao asked what was wrong. Dan asked her to stop communicating with Yi. Qing said that Lin's condition was similar to the situation the Yu clan found itself in. Then suddenly he became crippled, and he had a very difficult time at that period of his life. And now he has finally regained his former self-confidence and perked up. Yu said that she understood what she was getting at, and in turn would be kind to him. Jiao seemed to have a paradigm shift because of Dan Qing, even though she didn't think he was a very good person. Yu urged Lin to hurry up, otherwise the others would gather all the spiritual herbs. Yi thought that she had changed. The main character said that Dan can also join them, since it is unsafe to act alone. Qing happily agreed to accompany her. Yi understood that this could be quite troublesome. Outside the mountain forest, they went in a friendly company in search of herbs. Qing Dan noticed that Yu was going in the wrong direction. Jiao said she knew about it and just wanted to take a walk. Lin realized that she was extremely embarrassed to express her emotions and scold him in front of Qing. Meanwhile, the leader of the Thousand Blades clan felt much more comfortable, because now he could take action. The girl who was with him said that he would definitely win this convention, while Hai would not be able to interfere with him. The enraged clan leader declared that he did not need to please anyone and was not afraid of anyone, after which he grabbed her by the neck. The girl stated that she had heard about a hot spring in this forest. Then her lifeless body collapsed to the ground, because he did not spare the poor girl. At this time, in the mountain forest, Lin and his female company moved on. Yi asked how spiritual medicine could be found in such a forest. Yu was annoyed, although it did not concern her that Lin liked Dan. At that moment they were noticed by the disciples of the Thousand Blades clan. They stated that they didn't have to do anything, as the prey itself fell into their hands. In a few seconds, they literally surrounded them. Lin was only happy about this. One of the Thousand Swords sect told his disciples to report that the target had been found. Smiling, Yi said that he was not in the mood, but now he would be happy to warm up. The elder replied that they were only ordered to fight people from the 100-Sword clan. Therefore, Lin can be free, and they will not touch him, which makes Yi laugh even more. Yu hurried to expose her blade. Dan and Lin also prepared. Qing noticed that since there are so many of them, Yi has a chance to escape. At that moment, Jiao invited them to leave together, saying that she herself was able to defeat them. But Lin didn't even think about doing this. He grabbed one of the disciples of the Thousand Swords clan. Then he stated that he was also a member of the 100 Blades sect. He threw him like a rag at another robber, saying that they were just small fry. And after he deals with them, he will deal directly with their leader. Turning to the girls, Lin asked them to cross to the other side and join Xian. But Dan and Yu were categorically against this, answering that it was too dangerous. after which they looked at each other. Qing realized that Jiao also had designs on the main character. Huang corrected herself, saying that she herself must take revenge on the clan, with thousands of blades. Dan stated that it was not easy for her to meet Yi again, so she would not leave him in trouble. Then Lin said that it would be better to collect spiritual herbs and wait until the sect, thousands of swords, come to them. After which, Yi hurried to get a map of the forest, where there were marks of herbs. Lin, in turn, wondered if the head of the clan would bring thousands of swords, that same aphrodisiac, which he needed so much. Huang Jiao ran up to him and stared at the map. She asked what kind of card it was. Lin replied that Jiang Hai gave it to him. It shows the location of the spiritual herbs by pointing to a point on the map. Yi said that there was a very useful herb there that Jiang needed. Lin decided to go to where high-quality spiritual medicine grows, namely tiger heart grass. After a short period of time, they continued to wander through the forest. After which, they suddenly came across the same beaten robbers, who did not understand why they returned. You asked why they came to the same place where they were before. The main character didn't know how to explain it to her, because he himself couldn't understand what was going on. Jiao stated that it would be better if she led them on a map. But 2 hours later they again returned to the bandits from the Thousand Swords clan, who were at a loss, and noticed that they were lost. Assuming that he knew his way around this forest well, Lin took a member of the Thousand Blades sect with him. After which, they all went together in search of spiritual herbs. Dan said that this was the first time she had gone so far from the camp. And even during missions, she tries to stay closer to home. You stated that she lost her way because of the bright sun. Qing reprimanded Lin and asked if he should tell the bandit about the tiger heart herb. After all, he must have a way of interacting with his clan. Yi was more afraid that the leader of their sect would not be able to find him, which is what Dan said. You noted that if she knew someone from the Heavenly Punishment clan, she could turn spiritual herbs into pills. Lin asked in surprise whether her clan really didn't know how to make medicine. Huang Jiao's indignation knew no bounds. She answered Yi nervously, that absolutely no one except the clan of Heavenly Punishment knows how to do this, which is located in the Imperial Court, and they are the only carriers of this knowledge in the world of cultivation. And in fact, this has long been a well-known fact. The main character thought about it. Only Qing tried to calm him down, saying that there was nothing wrong with it, because it doesn't often get out of the house, and some cultivators themselves don't know their properties and put them up for auction. You added that those who ask the Heavenly Punishment sect for this should order them. Yi realized that apart from the Imperial Court, the market for making pills was monopolized. Therefore, even pills are very expensive. The system informed him of the reverse mode. Lin wondered if this reverse mode would affect his ability to create pills. After all, if this is really true, then he will be able to produce them in huge quantities. Thus, he can literally become a master of alchemy. At this moment, a member of the Thousand Blades clan announced that they had arrived. At that very second, Lin demoralized him. He called out to the others. Having said that, it looks like this is where the tiger heart grass grows. Yi Lin suggested that the head of their sect might come here. They saw the entrance to the cave in front of them. You hurried everyone inside, where they were met by the local inhabitants. He noticed the girls' frightened faces and asked what was the matter. They, in turn, suddenly attacked him, declaring that they were scared, because they saw a bat approaching them. Lin caught several of them. Then he reminded Jiao and Qing that they were actually one step away from the level of forming the foundations of cultivation. But at the same time they were afraid of some bats, adding that if it weren't for him, they certainly wouldn't have found the spiritual herbs, and they wouldn't have won the competition. At this time, he himself was frightened by a huge mouse that suddenly appeared in front of him, which rushed towards him. He shouted that she was very big, not to mention whether it can even be called a bat. However, the creature flew past them and picked up the beaten robber. They only looked after the flying bandit. Lin realized that this forest was not so safe. After all, this mouse is at least at the level of cultivation formation. Yi hurried the girls to find the herbs before the monster returned to the cave. Qing felt cold. You urged her not to be afraid. The system notified Yi about the weakening from Yin energy. Due to this, his immunity to cold began to grow. Dan said that it was better for Lin to use spiritual power for protection. A few minutes later, they finally found the tiger's heart, which Yi shouted joyfully about. Lin noticed that they found the spiritual plant almost effortlessly. Trying to pick the grass, Yi said that with this he would thank Jiang Hai. At this moment, Dan Qing shouted at him not to do this. Lin was surprised. Suddenly, an incredibly large black tiger appeared behind him. The main character was stunned and immediately retreated back. Dan said that this cannot be, because it is fundamentally different from the records. Jiao noticed that instead of going and helping Yi, she stood there and muttered some nonsense. She herself rushed to the aid of Lin, who was dodging the tiger's blows. She noticed that after the monster's blows, the ground was covered with ice. Jiao said that although she allows Lin to bully her every day, he is not allowed to do so. Yi, in turn, hastened to deny it, saying that no one was making fun of her. Yu took out her painstakingly forged blade from its sheath and headed towards the tiger. A magical aura literally enveloped her, and Huang Jiao soared into the air. After which, she flew into the monster with lightning speed, thereby inflicting crushing damage on it and driving it out of the cave. Lin noted her strength, saying that she was truly at the beginning level of the basics of cultivation. Then he asked Dan if that was why she stopped him at the flower, knowing that she was guarded by a tiger. Qing replied that she thought so about the bat, because she heard how spiritual herbs are guarded by sacred creatures, and she stopped him because of the incorrect properties of tiger grass. After all, after tablets are made from tiger grass, they have an effect that allows people to make a breakthrough. This is because her yang energy neutralizes the cultivator's yin spiritual energy before he learns to fly. Since spiritual energy can be absorbed from the ground, his spiritual energy will be poisoned by yin energy. But tiger heart grass has the properties of extreme cold yin. Even a sacred animal has this property, which is quite strange. Dan asked if he understood why she stopped him at that moment. He answered positively, adding that he simply dreamed something terrible. Lin Yi himself suggested that this was all due to a broken system, and it was she who was to blame for everything. Then he asked if this tiger herb could be useful. Qing answered rather hesitantly that she was most likely useful. The main character, without hesitation, tore out the flower with its roots and said that they did not have time. However, the next second, he felt a wild and piercing pain throughout his body. Dan began to ask him for forgiveness, saying that it was her fault because she did not express herself clearly. But Lin was only happy, as he made the long-awaited breakthrough. His yang energy increased, which the system notified him about. A few moments later he fell to the ground. Qing became worried. She hurried to kiss him, thinking that in this way she would save his life. Lin began to brush her off, demanding that she let him go. Meanwhile, the brave Huang Jiao dealt with the monstrous tiger. At this moment, she heard muffled voices behind her. They were talking about tiger grass, and they found the traces of her brother Mu. Yu, in turn, realized that this was the Thousand Swords clan, and climbed onto a tree branch. Jiao recognized one of them as the second eldest of the Thousand Blade sect. Lin and Dan hurried to tell about this. She rushed into the cave with lightning speed. Running into it, she asked what she and Yi were doing. Qing replied that the main character was poisoned. Yu said that they need to leave quickly, because people from the Thousand Swords clan, led by their second elder, were on their trail. And he is a specialist in the middle stage of forming the foundations of cultivation, and they will not be able to defeat him on their own. They took the weakened Yi by the arms and hurried to go deeper into the cave. Since there could already be people from the sect in it, they could only hope that they could find a way out of it. You noted that they were walking too slowly and urged Qing to move faster. While semi-conscious, Lin began to wonder where the tiger grass was. Such a small amount of yang energy is not enough, and the yin energy resists, causing Yi to freeze and be unable to move. Qing stated that yin energy was circulating in the cave, and if they discovered it, they would be able to get out. At that moment, the elder of the Thousand Swords clan, Mei Maobing, shouted into the cave, urging them to give him the herb, adding that this will be regarded as the establishment of an alliance between the clans. Yu, in turn, did not make them wait long, and told them to get lost. Because the heart of a tiger belongs to their clan, heavenly punishment. One of them noticed that the map of spiritual mountains, only the Thousand Blade clan has, and perhaps they have united with heavenly punishment. Mao Bing replied that this was a lie, and if it were truly the heavenly punishment sect, they would not even talk to them. I make my way deeper into the cave. Dan suddenly discovered a hot spring. She couldn't even imagine that there would be such a place here, which is what you reported. Who asked how a hot spring could have ended up here? Qing suggested that yin energy surrounded everything, and the tiger grass acquired the properties of ice, which is quite strange. They were looking at the hot spring when Huang Jiao suddenly had an epiphany. She asked Dan if it was after touching the tiger flower that Lin became like this. At this moment, even Yi understood what was happening and what Huang Jiao was up to. Qing replied that that was exactly what happened, and she assumed that he had frostbite. Lin mentally begged you not to do this, and asked her forgiveness for all his mockery. However, the mechanism was launched. Jiao grabbed him by the clothes and said that it was for his good, after which she threw him into a hot spring. Yi at that second hated her. You noted that the bubbling spring should neutralize the cold. The system notified the protagonist about cold poisoning, which increased his immunity. After some time, he emerged from the water and said a few kind words to you. Not only did he never find a way to make a breakthrough, but Jiao also became friends. Meanwhile, Mao Bing entered a cold cave and realized that there should be no tiger grass in such a place. Unless something happened that he could not even dream of, Mei did not think that everything would be so easy, and he can literally hit the jackpot. Mao Bing smiled. Touching the stone and cold wall, Dan said that someone was coming for them, and this someone moves very quickly through the cave, and since Yi has not yet recovered, the only way out of the situation is to fight Elder Mabin. As Jiao suggested to do, Lin was still accepting the gifts of the hot spring. Qing began to prepare. She used the ice energy of the Yin cave to form a magic field that would delay the Thousand Blades clan for a short time. Lin Yi understood very well that they really needed help now. He was sorry to miss such a chance, but he still decided to finish what he started, and find a way to finally make the long-awaited breakthrough. He began to swim deeper into the source, when he suddenly saw something sparkling. Swimming closer, he noticed a certain crystal that was literally growing out of the stones. Lin suggested that this was some kind of artifact. Meanwhile, a shark unnoticed swam up to him. At this time, Mao Bing approached the magic trap left by Dan. He called out to them, saying that this would not stop him, and there was no point in resisting them, advising them to give up as soon as possible, and then they might get lucky. Otherwise, not the best future awaits them. You asked him if everyone in the clan is like him, pathetic and vulgar. Qing Dan naively believed that they could cope without Lin. Mao Bing noticed that they were no weaker than the geniuses of Qingzhou, and even knew how to use the environment to install an array. Dan asked you to run away with Lin when the array collapsed while she tried to apprehend Mei. Jiao flatly refused, saying that she should run away with Yi, since they were drawn into this because of the Hundred Blades clan. A few seconds later, Mao Bing finally destroyed the magical barrier, after which he, with a self-confident and arrogant expression on his face, approached them, and he said that he was giving them one last chance to think about his proposal, or everything would end in tears. The girls prepared for battle, and were not going to accept his conditions. At this moment, Lin emerged from the hot spring and threatened Mao Bing. Mei and the beaten student were shocked by his sudden appearance, and they began to butter him up, saying that they were very glad to see him here. Lin, in turn, did not intend to be provoked. Huang Jiao and Dan Qing breathed a sigh of relief, because they realized that Yi was already able to deal with the Thousand Swords clan. Lin defiantly took out the shark he had killed from the source. Breaking into a smile, he noticed that there was one loophole in the system. 15 minutes before the main character emerged from the source in full health, he was fleeing from a shark, unaware that he would face such a threat at the source. Moreover, this location is in no way similar to the habitat of a shark. Having outwitted the shark, Lin hurried to strike it with a powerful blow. At this time, Yi realized that the shark was actually guarding an unknown crystal, after which, a life-and-death battle began between them again. After some time, Lin was still able to defeat the underwater monster. He then touched the crystal, after which the system reported contact with a 100-year-old ice crystal, the cold of which corroded his body, therefore his yang qi characteristics increased again. The cave was a holy place for cultivation, as this crystal produced the necessary energy, and the hot spring itself is not inferior in value to a 100-year-old ice crystal. Suddenly, Lin was overcome by some kind of magic, and he realized that he was about to make a breakthrough. After a few minutes, he finally broke through to the foundation level. The system reported the detection of a foreign invader, to which fines were applied. He was not happy with this development of events. This system already caused a lot of trouble, and then there was a fine, the essence of which was that creatures within a radius of 100 meters would experience hatred and hostility towards the punished. And this punishment from the heavenly Tao will last about 30 seconds, after which the countdown began. The system notified him that the heavenly Tao was in turmoil and his will was in conflict. Suddenly the penalty began to work in the opposite direction, and all creatures, on the contrary, became more friendly. Lin noted that the punishment is too simple, especially since the system has radically changed it. Mao Bing threw himself at Ye's feet, declaring that he would tell him all the secrets of the Thousand Blades clan. Qing and Jiao, in turn, began to beat Mei, saying that no one has the right to touch Lin. There were 20 seconds left. The main character did not know how to explain to them what had happened when the time ran out. When suddenly the gentle voice of Qing Dan called out to him, Yi turned around and saw smiling girls in front of him, who began to literally court him, saying various compliments. The main character understood that this would not last long, and after time they would return to their usual behavior. Meanwhile, the system announced a malfunction, and the inability to reverse emotions. Lin again began to blame the broken system. 18 seconds remained. Moreover, he would not have had time to express his feelings in such a short time. In addition, the system could be repaired, and then the situation would take a rather nasty turn. The girls began to say that he was apparently very tired and needed to rest. He still decided to cast aside doubts and kissed the girls. They were in bewilderment. Lin then hugged them and said that the most important thing for them now was to make a breakthrough. After which he jumped into the hot spring with them. Yu and Qing were not prepared for such a turn of events. With only 10 seconds left, Yi began to explain to the girls with gestures that this is a sacred place for cultivation and they should do it immediately. However, Huang Jiao and Dan Qing did not seem to understand him, and looked at him with surprised eyes. Yi realized that all his attempts were in vain, and so he began the only way. With 7 seconds left, Lin hurried to help them absorb the yang qi of the hot spring. He touched them with his hands and a reaction began. Besides, he still needed to increase his strength. Giving up energy, Lin began to rapidly lose stat points. Yu and Dan, meanwhile, began cultivating at the bottom of the hot spring. Yi, in turn, sailed to the side for the miraculous crystal. Having torn it out, he wanted to take it with him, and discovered a hole in its place. The water suddenly began to flow into the hole that had formed. Lin was surprised. He couldn't even imagine that there was a passage underwater at the bottom of the hot spring, in which they all also began to be drawn in. He suggested that there might be treasures there. A whirlwind erupted from the source. The head of the Thousand Blades clan noticed it, and he realized that this heavenly phenomenon foreshadowed the birth of a treasure. Naively believing that he would become the only owner of the spiritual plant, at that time Yi went outside with the girls. It turned out that the source was connected to the lake, which means the origin of the source and the ice crystal is not simple. Lin wanted to know his secret. The girls, in turn, were unconscious. Yi thought that they would wake up after the breakthrough. Starting to look for the card, he discovered that it was missing, and he began frantically patting his pockets, but she was nowhere to be found. Lin was terrified. He assumed that she was in the lake, which meant he needed to go back and find her. But it was impossible to leave Yu and Qing unattended. At that moment, a sword flew past him, which pierced the tree. The main character turned around sharply and saw the sect leader. Thousands of swords. Chen Shubai introduced himself and said that he did not need to be so polite, because he was so talented and smart. The system reported a decrease in all characteristics. Since Shubai began to praise him, Chen was holding the card in his hands. Lin noted that if he was so afraid of him, then he had better give up the card and leave on good terms. Subai pointedly opened the card and asked why Yi needed it. After all, if people from the sects find out that the map is in the hands of the capital, then the Taoists of Jianghai and Lin will have problems. Yi replied that he had no idea what Chen was talking about and asked where he got the card from. Subai smiled and said that he is quite smart. It is not surprising why Menzin trusts him so much. Adding that Lin was not strong enough, Yi hurried to convince him otherwise. They began to fight, Chen noting his speed and physique, which were superior to even an ordinary mid-stage practitioner. But with his 8 swords he was no match. Yi launched a series of attacks at Shubai, and he asked where his 8 notorious blades were. Chen smiled in response. Then he replied that his swords were always nearby, and pointed to the sleeping Yu and Qing, over which Shubai's swords hung. Lin realized that he had calculated everything. The system notified the main character that he had fallen into a trap, and therefore his performance improved. Chen said that these two girls were too beautiful for Master Lin. Yi stated that he was ready to do anything for the sake of the 100 Blades clan, and asked what Shubai wanted. Chen said that he did not need to harm the 100 Sword sect, since they would be destroyed without his participation, and it was only a matter of time. Subai stated that he wanted to receive spiritual herbs in exchange for saving the lives of the girls. Lin replied that there was no problem with that, and he would give him these medicinal plants. As it turned out, Jiang Hai was watching everything that was happening from the side. Chen, in turn, was extremely surprised that Yi accepted his conditions so easily. At this moment, Hai attacked Subai, saying that he did not dare touch his people. Lin said that the tiger heart grass was in the hands of Chen, who threatened to kill these girls. A battle ensued between Jiang and Shubai, while Yi took the blow of 8 swords. They pierced his back, thus saving Yu Jiao and Qing Dan. His indicators immediately began to increase. Lin realized that this was far from the end. Chen's attack was much stronger than Menzen's attack, and he had no choice but to endure this pain. The system reported the initiation of a special rainbow effect, as a result of receiving a huge amount of health. Lin began to vomit rainbow blood, but he continued to bravely overcome this condition. Shubai noticed that Lin was coughing up rainbow blood. He was perplexed. Jiang Hai noted that he was clearly underestimating him since he was distracted during the battle. Jiang demanded that he return the grass immediately, which only angered Chen. He stated that the old man seemed to have gone crazy, and he would have to deal with him. Lin unfortunately could not help Hai Jiang at the moment. He was recovering from his injuries and looked at the resting girls. After reaching the foundation-laying realm, he could recover from attacks faster. He even began to get used to this curse. It's a pity it didn't affect his emotions. He needed to find a way to solve this problem in order to ultimately become even stronger. Suddenly he discovered a card lying on the ground. Lin hurried to pick it up. After all, one way or another, he had not yet returned the favor to the sect leader who used a false name. At that moment, Subai's sword flew into the map, thereby tearing it into pieces. Yi managed to dodge the blade, but he understood that Chen was not so stupid. Chen's sword was connected by a chain that wound around the main character's leg. Yi Lin realized that he had fallen into Shubai's trap, after which the sword flew to the side, thus, dragging Yi along with him, and therefore the system increased its characteristics. Lin caught himself thinking that he was even pleasantly excited by this situation. However, how long the blade will fly is unknown. At this time, the leader of the 1,000 Sword clan was called by his real name, Zhao Wuhuan. After looking around, he became distracted and received a blow from Hai Jiang. Wuhuan suddenly began to run away. Jiang tried in vain to stop him. Zhao used his ability, spiritual clones of swords. His clones appeared around him. Meanwhile, Wuhuan's blade fell into a cliff, and Lin found himself on a small island, in the form of a rock ledge. He began to think about how he could get out of here, but there seemed to be no options. Because jumping down was risky, because he could get too much health and as a result he would be torn apart. Since he cannot go down, it means he had to climb up. Lin noticed the hanging vines and grabbed one of them, after which, he began to slowly and carefully climb it, hoping that it would not break. Then, like a monkey, Yi began to jump from one vine to another. Everything seemed to be going well, and Lin even began to gain optimism. But at a certain moment, jumping onto another vine, it suddenly broke. Thus, Yi flew to the very bottom, and subsequently landed rather painfully. The system notified him of the damage received and, accordingly, an increase in immunity. Opening his eyes slightly and coming to his senses, he began to look around. As a result, I discovered a passage into a cave, which I was pleasantly surprised by. It was practically invisible due to the large number of vines. Going inside, he began to carefully study its surroundings. Suddenly he saw something in the distance. These were the burning eyes of poisonous snakes. They rushed towards him with lightning speed. Lin assumed that these were spirit beasts, but in fact, they were not even snakes. He began to understand. He had finally found what he had been looking for so long, and his instincts did not let him down. Because the leaves of the spiritual grass of a pure heart looked just like snakes, the poison of which could instantly kill on contact, and its roots were a first-class drug. He looked at the piece of the map, and he was finally convinced that he was right. Apparently he was destined to end up here. After which Lin allowed himself to be bitten by the snake to understand how poisonous it was. Despite the small dose of poison, unlike the poison of the Thousand Swords clan, it increased life expectancy. However, the happiness did not last long, because the serpentine leaves no longer had poison. They instantly withered and crumbled in Ye's palm, which means he won't be able to get the herb of a pure heart. Only if he wanted to increase his characteristics did Lin need resources to exchange. After all, the enhancement was insignificant, even though it increased life expectancy. Yi had one idea, which he immediately began to implement. Having cut the wall of the cave with his hand like a sword, he went inside, where there were a lot of snake-like plants. Thus, he had more time and chances to dispel the curse. Meanwhile, the defeated and embittered leader of the Thousand Swords clan walked through the forest. Suddenly he met Mao Bin, who hurried to meet him. He started talking about the rather strange behavior of Lin and the girls. The burns on the face of the sect leader were corroding his face. Mao Bing was horrified and told him about it. In response, Zhao stated that since he had learned his secret, there was no longer any point in his existence. He abruptly grabbed Mao Bing by the face, and after a few seconds, seemed to suck out his life energy, as a result of which he was able to restore the skin on his face. Wu Huan understood that he needed a plan on how to destroy Menzin. The elder mentioned that the girls were at the lake, where Zhao headed, while Mei Maobing's lifeless body lay on the ground. The main character cultivated in a cave, and seemed to increase his life by at least 100 years. Yi thought that if he had about 200 years left, he would climb to the top of the cultivation world. But for now, he needed to collect all the leaves of the plant without getting bitten. Lin didn't know how to do this. Suddenly a brilliant idea came to his mind. He took out the ice crystal that he had obtained from the hot spring earlier, and he neutralized the snake-like leaves of the grass, literally turning them into ice. It is a pity that the system did not provide space for storing things. Yi didn't even have a spatial ring, so he had to get out of the situation. He made a bag out of his clothes, into which he placed the frozen plant. Meanwhile, Wu Huan caught up with Dan Qing, and said that if she retreats, he will spare her life. But the princess was not going to give up, saying that only in his dreams would she retreat. Lin heard their voices and realized that they were right above him, but how he could get to the top was a difficult question. Yu and Qing got involved in a massacre with the leader of the Thousand Blades clan, Zhao. Zhao noticed that he had even learned the bloody sword technique and was successfully using it. Dan added that the sect leader turned out to be such a despicable person that Chen tried to convince them otherwise, saying that if he were as they wrote him, they would no longer be alive. He once again called on them to leave so as not to harm themselves. Qing interrupted his monologue and asked where Lin was now. Wu Huan replied that he himself was interested in finding out, suggesting that he died after falling into his trap. Dan stated that Yi wants to protect you, and she completely agrees with him on this. She suddenly attacked Zhao. He noticed that she had just reached the stage of laying the foundations and was not strengthening them, but she still dared to attack him and resist his mighty power. Wu Huan repulsed her attack and struck back, which she was unable to block. Thus, she flew towards the cliff. Zhao smiled. Yu Jiao put out her hand and called on Dan to grab it. However, she failed to do this, and as a result she fell down. Huang Jiao couldn't believe her eyes. She immediately rushed towards the cliff. Looking for her in the pitch darkness, Yu understood that Qing most likely would not survive, due to which Jiao literally fell into madness. She turned to Wu Huan, and she threateningly declared that she wanted his speedy death, and she would do everything possible for this. At this moment, Ye's voice called out to her and asked what was wrong with her expression. Jiao was shocked by his appearance. He was holding Dan in his arms. The main character told her to leave with Qing, and gave her the bag, and he would deal with Zhao himself. But Jiao still couldn't believe that he was actually alive. Yu said that he should have come earlier because she was very worried about him. Yi said that she looked quite cheerful, and almost increased his stats. Then he hurried to give her the bag with the plant, and the unconscious Qing, stating that he was the only one who would now fly off the cliff. This is precisely Wu Huan, which in turn did not think so and smiled back. Having said that it would be a shame if Lin died earlier and they never met again, Yi asked if he had any poison or aphrodisiac with him, and if he did, it would be better to give them away right away, because then he will die and it will be too late to ask anything. Zhao appreciated his sense of humor and gave him a bottle of poison, noting that the slightest drop would be enough for him to die, asking why he needed an aphrodisiac. When he had two such beauties, Lin gave the bottle of poison to Yu, and said that he would need it after he killed Wu Huan. After which he went to the head of the clan of 1,000 Blades to finally deal with him once and for all. Zhao began to say that they are not each other's enemies, and their only enemy is Menzin. Wu Huan tried to hit such a resourceful Yi, but he did not have enough speed. Zhao kept trying to get Lin to talk, and asked if he had wondered why his blood was rainbow-colored. Yi thought about it, but couldn't understand what he was talking about, assuming that he just wanted to confuse him. Wu Huan continued to talk and try to convince Lin that they were not enemies. And in fact there is one big secret that he doesn't know about. In response, the main character just laughed. Zhao did not understand what made him laugh so much. He stated that he was telling the truth and there was nothing funny about it. A couple of seconds later, Lin suddenly disappeared. Wu Huan did not have time to follow him, while Yi was already flying on the wings of death towards him from the other side. Having said that Zhao wanted to poison him with poison, he then ordered the murder and threw him off a cliff. And now he wants to convince him that they are not each other's enemies. An extremely embittered Lin declared that he would kill him, without a drop of regret. After which he pounced on him and struck him with his blade. His legs turned like the paws of a griffin. Wu Huan understood that he would not be able to deal with him easily and quickly. Yi still managed to injure him. Zhao said that he was too kind to him, but now he will make him a cripple. The head of the 1,000 Blades clan put a mask on his face, thereby covering his wound. Lin prepared to attack and smiled looking into Wu Huan's eyes. Having flown towards each other, they suddenly began to get closer. Yi assured that this was the end of Zhao. Actively using his abilities, Wu Huan was never able to harm Lin. On the contrary, his body only became stronger, and his characteristics increased. Zhao needed a well-thought-out plan of action, otherwise he would truly lose. Because at the moment, Lin began to beat him and it seemed that nothing would stop him. Realizing that he could not defeat Yi, Wu Huan hurried to escape. Proud Lin declared that he had fulfilled his promise and took revenge for the clan with hundreds of blades. At this time, his rainbow blood flowed again, his indicators increased. Yu assumed that he was poisoned again and rushed to his aid. The main character hastened to calm her down, saying that he was fine. He just needs to rest a little, as he is tired, and asked Yu's permission to lean on her. Moreover, if not for Hai Zhang's technique, then who knows how their duel with Zhao would have ended. Lin lay down on the ground and put his head on Yu's legs, saying that he should rest a little. 15 minutes earlier, Yi Lin finally realized everything. He was able to understand the truth of this technique and its excellent effect, but the system reported a decrease in spiritual strength and mastery of technology. Yi realized that things wouldn't work out that way. For some reason he was always one step behind, because the more he tries to cultivate, the greater the regression, and even if cultivated in a relaxed state, there will still be a penalty. The system was extremely cunning. Without giving him a chance to work, Jiang Hai gave him two techniques. The first is the spiritual enhancement technique. The second, underground escape, but it was not effective, and if he cultivates the underground escape technique, which allows you to dig and run underground, at that moment Yi saw a bird in the sky. Suddenly she began to rapidly approach him. A moment later Lin saw Dan in her and was shocked. Yi understood that she would not survive the collision with the ground, and tried to pull herself together. There was too little time to remember what to do in such situations. Lin began to get nervous, but nothing sensible came to mind. In some miraculous way, the underground escape technique was suddenly activated. Spiritual wings grew behind Ye's back and he caught tribute before landing on the ground. However, the flip side of the coin was that upon contact with the Earth's surface, he would lose attack power and fatigue would increase. That's why currently, Lin was experiencing extreme body pain and fatigue. Tired Yu Jiao and Dan dragged the exhausted Yi through the dense forest. Yu stated that he could at least try to hold on with his legs. Lin replied that he had absolutely no strength. Meanwhile, Hai Jiang noticed them and rushed to their aid. He began asking them about what happened and why Yi was in such a state, and also where exactly he was wounded and how serious his injuries were. The old man literally began to panic, blaming himself for everything, and shaking his already weak body. At that moment the system reported receiving a concussion, during which his mental clarity increased. The system continued to record abuse towards Yi, gradually regenerating his health. Lin eventually recovered within seconds. He said that everything was fine with him and asked Kai to stop tugging at him. He himself understood perfectly well that the old man cared about him, and he should be thanked in the future. Thus, having pushed himself into one idea, he immediately ran up to the girls. You asked what he wanted from them, since Dan was still unconscious. Lin took out the box and showed it to the noisy Jiao, while calming her down. You, in turn, really calmed down and looked carefully at the box. After which he took it to Old Man Hai. Jiao naively believed that it was a gift to her. However, she realized that Lin actually wanted to thank Jiang, who was standing in the crowd of his minions. People noticed that Yu was quite harsh in her statements, and such a rude person. Pretends to be a modest woman. Meanwhile Yi showed Hai the grass he found in the cave. Jiang noted that this plant's attribute was not what it should be. Lin asked if he could use it. Hai sadly replied that it could only be put up for auction. Then Yi threw him a bag and reminded him of his share. Jiang's face changed dramatically and enthusiastically declared that this was the herb of a pure heart. He asked where he got it. Lin, in turn, hurried to say goodbye to him, saying that he still had a lot to do. Ji ran up to Yu and said that this time they would be able to distinguish themselves, since they had collected a lot of spiritual herbs. But this did not bother her very much, because Yi asked her to go to the camp to restore Qing. Saying that she would find them in a couple of days, Jiao muttered uncertainly that he must not forget and find him in 2 days, calling the capital a dangerous place. The sinister system again reduced his characteristics, since he received the care of Yu. The main character promised sweet Huang Jiao that he would definitely come to her. Meanwhile, the exhausted Wu Huan wandered through the dense forest and understood one thing. There is no way he can stay in the Thousand Blade sect anymore. Zhao didn't expect Yi to be so strong, despite the fact that it is only in the early stages of laying the foundations. True, there was still one plus, it was an ice crystal that he was able to get. Therefore, the trip was not a complete failure, because with him Wu Huan would be able to weaken its seal. He thought that he would still defeat Yi later. As a result of receiving hatred from Zhao, who remembered the main character, the system immediately reported an increase in Lin's mood by 50 points. Yi realized that Wu Huan still survived and remembers him with bad words. In the evening, Lin went to Old Man Hai Zhang's chambers to get his. He warned that he was going to enter. At that moment the door suddenly opened in front of him, and the alarmed Jiang dragged the young master inside the room, telling him not to make any noise. After which, he began to lock all the doors. Lin asked what was happening, noticing that even such an influential person like him suddenly became afraid of something. Hai replied that he could not imagine such a quantity of pure heart spiritual grass, because if it were just one tiger grass, there would be nothing to be afraid of. Lin said that he was completely uninterested in this, and he came for his share. Jiang took out a chest with gold bars and gave it to Yi, saying that this was all his savings, and since this grass is too expensive, it will take him some time to collect the remaining amount. Yi Lin asked if he already had any plan. Hai said that the auction would be held tomorrow, and according to rumors, there will be people from the Heavenly Punishment sect there. They will sell and get good money for the grass of the pure heart. Yi replied, the main thing for him is that he gets what he deserves. Jiang said that there will be a huge number of rare items at the auction. Lin asked if there would be military techniques there. Hai replied that their price would not be inferior to pure heart grass. Yi clarified that he wants to find techniques that have strong effects or give special abilities. Jiang said that such techniques are put up outside the auction and are not for sale, after which they agreed to meet in the flower pavilion. Lin was extremely interested in how strong he could become in order to get rid of the broken system. He took out a bottle of poison and thought about the benefits that poison would give him this time. Then, hastening to knock over the bottle of poison, he still didn't feel anything. Realizing that Wu Huan had deceived him, the main character became furious. The system reported drinking sweet water, and therefore reduced its strength. Out of anger, Lin broke a bottle of water and began to destroy all the trees around. Yi could not calm down, and was already mentally cursing the head of 1,000 blades. At this moment, Lin turned his attention to a young girl unknown to him. Coming from the direction of the lake, she muttered something indistinctly under her breath. Then she declared that she needed to return home to the ice palace. After which, Yi went to the market where the guy offered the children candy. The child asked his mother to take one. His mother replied that he should never take candy from strangers. Someone was selling vegetables, someone was selling clothes. In general, life was in full swing. Yi began to wait for Jiang. Lin looked at the building where the auction was held, and suddenly Hai called out to him. The Taoist noticed that Yi had arrived quite early and asked if he wanted to go there. The main character immediately replied that of course he wanted to come in and get his money. Hai said that he had carried out the necessary reconnaissance and would now bring him up to date. The old man showed him the best guides of this establishment who could give him a tour. The girls instantly stuck to Lin. He denied in every possible way and said that he was in a hurry. Noticing one oddity, he wondered why the system was silent. Apparently the girls were pretending. Suspecting something was wrong, Yi hurried to leave the company of young ladies. Going in search of Hai, Lin came across an unknown old man, who suddenly began to speak suspiciously well of the main character. As a result, he received a decrease in his characteristics, and his mood worsened. However, Yi answered the old man rather rudely, ruining his mood. The elderly man asked why he behaved so arrogantly, and what allowed him to be so arrogant. Jiang, who arrived in time, said that Lin simply had a difficult character, and actually did not want to offend him. In addition, he is generous and kind. The old man thought that Hai was overpraising him. Meanwhile, Lin Yi was frankly bored and wanted to quickly finish the auction. Still, having kept the old men company, Lin went to wander with them to various places. In turn, he noted a rather elegant place, among other establishments. What the streaker from the flower pavilion appreciated was evidence of Yi's good taste. Suddenly he turned to them and said that he needed to leave, since a representative of the Heavenly Punishment clan would soon come. Jiang thought that this time he would not leave empty-handed, since people from Heavenly Punishment had arrived. Taoist Li could not understand why Hai was so joyful, because he is usually penniless. Jiang stated that he had some kind of treasure and asked Li to send someone to evaluate it. Hai said that he would come over soon and asked Lin not to get into trouble during this time, because he was still a government man. He replied that everything would be fine and he didn't have to worry about it. He himself understood perfectly well that the government could really protect him from nothing. Some time later, Lin was present directly at the auction itself, where the waitresses served various alcoholic drinks to the guests. A girl approached him and asked what to bring him. He modestly replied that he didn't need anything. At that moment, an unknown guy approached him and called a loser, saying that he was probably here to earn extra money. After all, he has no money. Lin calmly walked away. The embittered young man asked why he was ignoring him. Yi turned around and asked who he was. The arrogant guy replied that no one really respects Lin. And he, in turn, broke into the realm of foundation laying a couple of days ago, and Yi does not dare to ignore him. Yi Lin, in his sarcastic manner, replied that this was simply amazing, and he was very happy for him. The formidable youth stated that Yi would not have won the tournament if he had not missed it due to his breakthrough. He asked if Lin really thought he was invincible. Yi replied, he didn't consider himself that way. After which, a fight broke out between them in the middle of the hall, and naturally Lin won. Having said that only the strongest are eligible to participate in the auction, people around were shocked. They began to discuss and condemn Yi. Some were scared by the fact that Lin had hit Jiang Ming of the Jiang family. The main character stated that he was from the government, and if they wanted to deal with him, they would have to stand in line. As a result, they ran away, saying that it was better not to mess with the government. Hai Jiang walked towards them. He could not understand what happened and why the people around were alarmed. He hastened to please Lin, saying that he was now the owner of the mine. Yi asked him why he bought him the mine, and what he should do with it now. Jiang said that in fact, his Lin family banished him to the small 100-sword sect. Changing the topic, Hai showed him spiritual stones, and noted that he could buy cultivation resources with such stones. The blue spiritual stone is a low-level stone, and costs approximately 100,000 taels of silver. And 10 low-level stones can be exchanged for 1 medium-level stone, and 100 medium-level stones for 1 high-level stone. After which he gave Yi a spiritual card. It was widespread in the cultivation world, and it was created by the Wanxian Alliance. He can use the card to store and exchange spiritual stones. 1 high-rank stone can be bought for 100 million silver, which is enough to support an entire city in luxury for a year, adding that these stones are mined in spiritual mines. And that's why the owners of spiritual stones are called mine owners. Yi asked how much the grass of a pure heart can be sold for. And how much does the spiritual stone cost? The Ding Yuan pill. Hai replied that the capsule costs 1 spiritual stone. And the grass was about 30 of these stones. Yi saw how people on the side were paying with such stones. Lin asked where he could buy useless military techniques. Jiang thought about it. Then he replied that he knew one person who might have them. However, this character is an extremely unpleasant person and loves to cause problems. And if he wants to find him, then he should look for him in a hospital, or in a place where people fight. And representatives of heavenly punishment will arrive today, so he will not appear here. At that moment, a very important guest appeared in the hall, around which everyone crowded. Hai said that the auction would now begin.